Sometimes the title of a study tells you the outcome, or at least the expected outcome. Take this one for example: flexible versus rigid dieting in resistance trained individuals seeking to optimize their physiques. In most areas of human endeavor, from politics to parenting, flexible produces better outcomes than rigid. Dieting is one of those endeavors. Without some degree of flexibility, long-term weight maintenance would be difficult, if not possible. But what about a short-term diet, especially when the idea is to get lean and muscular as you can? That's a more interesting question, which this study attempted to answer. My name is Jeremy Colon, and this is The Dark Side of Fitness, Episode 6. How the study worked. The researchers recruited 39 subjects who had at least 1 year of resistance training experience and were currently training for at least 2 hours a week. They were assigned to one of two groups: flexible diet or rigid diet, and told to follow their assigned plan for 10 weeks. The diets were designed with these goals: 25% calorie deficit, 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, remaining calories split evenly between carbs and fat. Those in the rigid diet group who were told exactly what to eat in each meal for 10 weeks. Those in the flexible group were assigned daily macronutrient targets and given an ebook telling them how to meet those numbers. They were encouraged to seek out a variety of foods and left to figure out their own meal plans. Both groups continued their normal training routines, with instructions to record their start and stop times for each session. Following the 10-week weight loss phase, groups were then told to eat as they desire for the next 10 weeks. Before I tell you what the study found, I have to note some reasons why the study couldn't answer its own question about flexible versus rigid dieting. 16 of the 39 subjects dropped out during a 20-week study, an astounding 40% attrition rate. Perhaps just another example of how hard it is for people to follow any kind of diet. That left them with 10 male and 13 female subjects who range in age from 18 to 39. If you're thinking, wait a second, isn't that a huge range for such a small study? I had the same thought. 9 of the 16 dropouts were in the flexible group, which at first glance makes no sense. Wouldn't it be easier to follow a diet with more choices? The researchers say that, in this case, it was actually easier for the rigid group to use their diet since they didn't have to worry about how to hit their macronutrient targets. They just had to follow the meal plans for 10 weeks with no math required. What the study found: there were no significant differences between the two groups after the 10-week diet phase or the 10-week phase of eating as they desire, but there was some interesting results, which are highlighted above. The flexible group, on average, lost a modest amount of weight, 3.4% of their baseline weight, after 10 weeks of reduced calories. Virtually all of it was fat. More impressive, they didn't regain any of the fat during the second phase, even though they gained nearly 2 kilograms of fat-free mass. So after 20 weeks, they had more muscle and less fat at a slightly lower body weight than when they started. Statistically speaking, the rigid group lost a similar amount of weight, 4% on average, and fat in the first 10 weeks. But unlike the flexible diet group, they didn't gain muscle in the eat as desire phase, and on average, trended toward decreased fat-free mass and increased fat mass. These changes weren't large enough to be statistically insignificant. They were still lighter and leaner after 12 weeks, but if the researchers' measurements were accurate, these subjects finished with slightly less lean mass than they started. Details you don't want to miss. The researchers can't explain why the flexible diet group gained fat-free mass in the second 10 weeks. They point out that 10 of the 11 participants in the flexible diet group gained fat-free mass compared to just 3 of the 12 in the rigid diet group. And they write, unfortunately, we do not have a strong hypothesis to offer for this observation. Here's the reality. The workouts weren't supervised. So I don't know exactly what they were doing in those exercise sessions, and that could explain the difference. What's more, participants' diets weren't monitored either. Instead, they filled out 3-day food questionnaires on 4 occasions during the study. That means the diet data relies on what the volunteers said they ate based off of memory. Here are some coaching takeaways. Number 1, This study is a lot like many diet studies. It doesn't give answers, and it can be hard to know what exactly to make of these findings. That's often how research works. Any study, including this one, provides methods and data that could be analyzed and critiqued and ultimately improved upon in future studies. It's a process that takes a long time. But what sticks out there, both rigid and flexible diets can be effective in the short term, and they can also completely fail from the get-go if that 40% attrition rate is any indicator. Number 2, what makes most is figuring out what works for any given individual. This requires an open mind and a willingness to experiment and adjust course based on outcomes. The simplest way to figure out what will work for you is to just try it. After all, study results typically only reflect the average for all participants. There are almost always outliers in either direction, so don't make assumptions. Get curious and just make it happen. So, my thoughts. Thank you for getting through to this part of the video. Please, at the end, like, share, and comment, honestly. So, as a fitness professional, especially when it comes to like nutrition and working with clients and everything, there are benefits to a rigid and a flexible. I feel like they have their pros and cons depending on the person. On the rigid side, people do need some type of structure, some type of routine that needs to be managed, and that needs to follow a guideline and some sort of protocol, whether it is following a specific routine where you're eating, etc., 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 and following a workout routine. And on the flexibility side, following more or less a 70-30 rule. 70% of the time you will eat clean, get as much protein, veggies, and limited amount of fat you take in, and get some good carbs in, get some good complex carbs in. And it all depends, right? Different people will get different results, but ultimately the end result and what we're aiming for is consistency through a nutrition routine that complements someone's lifestyle, in the sense that they're not compromising their well-being, their work-life balance, and adding stress. I feel like people get so wrapped up in stress with trying to eat the healthiest that it affects everything they do. You can't enjoy life, you can't enjoy eating time with the family, you can't basically do pretty much what you want to do. So at the end of the day, nutrition is all about a balance. It has to complement your lifestyle, it has to add to it, and it all depends. And at the end of the day, it all depends. I definitely can resonate with the study, even though the group ended up being smaller than initially anticipated. But at the end of the day, right, from a fitness professional who sees clients on a regular basis, different things yield different results. So at the end of the day, find what works best for you, and that's through trying. Honestly, trying different routines, trying different methods, cooking, buying meals. It kind of all depends. But at the end of the day, it has to complement everything you do, from regular life, working out, work-life balance, and making the best out of it, honestly. So thank you so much for watching this video. Do let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and share, like, and etc. Have a great Friday. Take care.